So itinerary wise, we're going to start with talking about where we are with chatbots and why I'm very passionate about what they can do for us. Also focus on being realistic as well about what they can't do yet. And then we'll talk about getting ready for your first chatbot project. We've done this, so I'll be giving you sort of very practical advice as to how we've done it and what we've learned, and I'll be showing you some of the things we've built. And then we'll also finish with touching on the future as well and what's coming down the line. Okay, so why we need some more chatbots in our life? Well, first up, there is a big problem with candidate experience. We know this. This type of survey that I pulled out for my research here, I could have pulled out several other surveys, but that's just it, yeah. So we know how it works. Online recruitment, and we started our business in 1999, so we've had this whole journey. But online recruitment's made it much easier to find relevant jobs. You set up your job alert. You can keep a toe in the water as a candidate, and then when those relevant jobs pop up, you can apply. What that means for the recruiters is far more applications coming through, many of which are not relevant, some of which are relevant. And that's it. And also it means as well, like candidates get into the process and get lots of things going on quite quickly, and maybe they're ghosting recruiters, but we also know that recruiters are ghosting and not getting back to applicants as well. So that's understandable. Due to the sheer volume, I work with lots of recruiters. We provide them wonderful software, but it is still, challenging for them to process all of those applicants and maybe even answer the questions. In an ideal world where you've got, a customer, the candidate, and someone who's selling something, that would be the recruiter. You're selling a job or a career with your organization. Normally you'd have open lines of communication, like here's a phone number or drop me an email, and they'd have that ongoing. And if you want to buy applicant tracking software from Hireful, we'll be able to speak to you. We will make time. I'm sure you could work that through. But the sheer volume of candidates just doesn't make that practical. And this is where I think there's definitely opportunities for chatbots to actually help candidates and provide all the answers that perhaps you don't have the time to field all of those questions. But obviously, the other thing to factor on here as well is candidates are becoming AI enabled. I've got a webinar that focuses specifically on this, but there was also a really good podcast I listened to from this company, Arctic Shores. They have a candidate survey, which is in the appendix, and it says, it shows that, candidates are using that they don't want to use AI to cheat, but they actually want to use it to sort of keep up with everyone else, use it to refine their thinking, and they're using it a lot. Yeah. And particularly, so a lot of Arctic Shore stuff is their candidates, a lot of them are early careers, so graduates and people early into their career. Yeah. And you can see that this audience, and this is what I think the rest of the market will be for candidates in due course in the next year or two. Over half of respondents surveyed were using AI in the recruitment process, helping them to write a CV, helping them prepare for interviews. This is not cheating. It's the same as using Google. It's just using the tools available. Yeah, if they use it to write a CV to say, write me the perfect CV for this role, regardless of my actual experience, then that would be cheating. But equally, an individual could do that now without ChatGPT if they wish to. But yeah, but what was also interesting, this is like it was shown about underrepresented. So like it seems that like there's some big differences here. So if we look at, so it's saying like when it comes to using AI in the recruitment process, 54% of white candidates say they have used or would use AI, but 71% of black candidates say the same. Now, we don't know the reasons for that, but it could very well be that perhaps black candidates feel they've perhaps been faced bias in previous life experiences, so maybe they're sort of willing to grab onto every advantage that they can, and they're more likely to use AI and be open to that. Whereas perhaps a white candidate feels like the world is going to be okay and it'll treat them, they don't need the extra advantage perhaps. To repeat, I'm not talking about cheating, I'm talking about using AI to enhance your process. But it is interesting, and one of the little quotes coming out of the study was also talking about the graduate schemes and saying how many more applications they're getting. Once candidates are starting to use AI, then they'll be using AI to help them apply. Yeah, that's the really key thing for me. And if you've seen, it's a little bit early for the average person, even for the sort of digitally literate person, but they are getting tools now called operators. And I think these will really make a difference when like Google Chrome adds it to their browser. And in 2, 3 years' time, you will say to your loved ones, "Oh, do you remember when we used to fill out a form? Do you remember the old days?" Because your operator will fill out that form for you. It'll be your AI agent in the browser. So you think about that now. That's available now. You can do it. It's just a bit early tech, and it sort of goes away. And if it doesn't, it knows your address and it knows all these things. And think about how much of a time save that would be. So you will give it your details if you feel it's secure. We already give like Google Chrome browser, like credit card details, perhaps. Some of us do, most of us do, perhaps passwords and things like this. So you're going to give it your address. You're going to give it some details around, it'll watch you fill out a job application form, learn, and then it will be able to step in for the next job application form. There'll still be the odd questions it won't know that are a bit unique to that organization. And this is where you see this already with the operators. It comes back to the user to say, "Oh, I don't know the answer to this question. Do you want to provide the answer?" And then it carries on the work. So it's a bit like just like an assistant that goes and does the work, comes back with a question, and then cracks on and carries on. So once these tools become more mainstream, automatic applications will happen. And I think you'll see things like the council and other not-for-profits and charities who have maybe a long process. Maybe they need DBS checking for certain roles, and they don't use a CV, they use an application form for various reasons. And maybe traditionally they've only got a couple of dozen applicants for some of those roles. When we get into this auto apply era, you'll see that will be the size of the application form will be somewhat irrelevant. Okay, so when we think about the problem of bad candidate experience, how do we solve it? Too many applicants. Well, is the answer more recruiters? Well, they're hard to recruit. Actually, they're not as hard to recruit, but there is a challenge there. There's a lot of we all probably know good recruiters who are in between jobs at the moment because the market's not fantastic, but it'll take time to train them into your systems and processes. And obviously, to increase, that's an increase in cost. And obviously humans are not as reliable. I don't wish to be rude about my fellow species here, but then we're not as reliable. We get sick, we even take holidays, and we only work typically 9 to 5. Well, some of us work a bit longer, but you get the general idea. Now, the pre-AI chatbots, which I'm going to ask you about in a survey in a second, well, they've got 24/7 availability. These are not super intelligent chatbots. They're the ones that sort of give you a series of options. What would you like to do today? Would you like to find out about this, or this? It's not like a free text where you can ask it anything. So it directs users to relevant content. They're very limited. They can't answer those open questions. So they couldn't say, "I'm applying to work in the marketing team. Can you tell me more about what career development would look like within the marketing team?" They're not going to be able to do that. And they can offer support, but obviously only in very rigid scenarios. It's very strict. Yeah. Now, the AI chatbots, obviously the difference here is they understand language. So what that means is they understand the language of the question. They can understand and comprehend what the user's trying to say, even if they put typos in it or don't frame their question very well. The chatbot would normally be able to pick up and understand that. And more importantly, if you fed it lots of data, lots of information, it can read and understand that information. So therefore, it's capable of answering any questions as long as it's been trained on that relevant information. Obviously, it's 24/7 available again, easy to scale. So, if you get 1,000 candidates coming or 10,000 candidates, the chatbot doesn't really have a problem. Obviously, it understands the question and the information, and it's retained all that information you've fed it. And we'll talk about how to do this later. It's also quite controlled as well. It doesn't answer questions where it doesn't know the answer, which is really key. Yeah. So this is why I'm thinking that chatbots are the solution to this, to how do you provide a customer service level? How do you provide good candidate experience at the start of the process? Now, at the end of the process, when you've got like 6 candidates to interview, humans can manage that with a real first-class experience, very human, very tailored, individualized, personalized experience. But at the start of the process, where maybe you have 1,000 applicants or 500 or 200, for me, it's chatbots that are going to come in and help that. Okay. But then there is a question, and the advantage you guys are here, you're on a chatbot webinar, so maybe you don't need to be convinced about chatbots, but some of your colleagues might have some queries about chatbots, but there's plenty of examples of stuff in the past that we considered a bit suspicious, or that won't catch on, or I can't imagine I would do that, but it's just become so mainstream. And every last one of these, the reason it's become mainstream, they're not helping you to do something you couldn't otherwise do. They're just helping you do it much faster. The benefit they're all selling is giving you time back, lots of time. So yeah, if I wanted to buy something in the 1990s, I had a credit card, I could phone up and tell the person my credit card details, and that I could buy that item or product. Obviously, I put details into a website. Plenty of times that came out before. I will not put a credit card into a website. That seems far too dodgy. Social media, would I want to share my details on there? Would I want to show people what lunch is, or where I am this weekend? Most of us, when we first saw that, thought, oh, that was really weird sharing all our details. But obviously, many of us have adapted to that. And even things like, renting a house or a flat from a stranger for 2 days, that would have seemed bizarre. So there's all of these changes are built through technology, and there's many, many others. I was reading the other day that when telephones first come out, that the skepticism there was, well, wouldn't it? I don't see why people would want to have a conversation with someone if you can't see them. So, it just needs people to change a little bit and get more comfortable. And I think more and more candidates will, and members of the public and recruiters will start to have good experiences with chatbots in many different types of environments. And as they have more good experience, then when they see a chatbot pop up, they'll be like, oh, good, I can get the answers I need. I'll go straight, I'm going to use the chatbot instead of going around the website to try and find what I want. So I think we'll see that happen more and more. Okay, and then you can think about, from a job seeker perspective, my recruitment or chatbot agent. Think about these bills. So you feed it your contact details, your salary expectations, notes on what maybe is lacking in your current role. I want better work-life balance, and I want to maintain my ability to work 4 days a week. But I want to make sure that during those 4 days, I've got true work-life balance, and people don't call me on a Friday when it's my day off. And maybe that's what you want. The chatbot can do the following thing. It can add my CV to relevant databases. This is in the near future. It can find potentially relevant jobs, but instead of finding those jobs, it will actually research them as well and go, right, okay, so there's some jobs here. I'm not just going to give those jobs to agent. I'm going to go and research them, make sure they meet his requirements. And that's why we see things like Glassdoor becoming really important, because how are these, people putting, even today, search into ChatGPT. Let me just do that for you now here. We could pop something on here. We could say, find me a company that does work, life balance, and is in Milton Keynes, where I live, and offers jobs for, I'll just say teachers or something. Let's just see. Obviously, it will look for schools typically, but I assume where it gets this information from a multitude of places. And you can sort of see the staff room, which is other websites, Milton Keynes council websites that will find these things. But it will also then, I could say what to do next. I might say, look, how do you know they are good at work-life balance? And it will go away and it will maybe search Glassdoor and other places, and it will tell you how it's worked that out. It says, oh, this one says this one says that, this school over here mentions they have a reputation for supportive leadership. Maybe it's read their Ofsted report, other things like this. So yeah, it will go and find information. So that information being out there is going to become really important for chatbots and people using just ChatGPT and the like. Yeah, but obviously the key thing is down the bottom here is it auto applies for relevant roles. And I think that's going to be a really key change. And like I say, all of this is then going to put extra pressure on recruitment teams. But before we get to that, I want to run a quick survey with you guys just to get your views on chatbots. Maybe I should have asked this before I give you my really positive view at the start, but I'm interested in seeing what's your past experience with non-AI chatbots been, broadly speaking. Just choose one of those options there. I've got one with that Anglia Water that I've gone onto their website and tried to sort of, find some help me with my challenges there. Wasn't particularly good for me. And then I'm also interested in how often you use AI chatbots. So we're thinking ChatGPT, some of you might use Copilot. I'm not worried necessarily on what you use, but we'll get a bit of an idea for you guys on that. So I'm just going to count down sort of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So thank you for giving me some insights there. So yeah, so current chatbots not too bad actually for non-AI chatbots, sort of mostly good and okay, a little bit in the poor section. And then, many of you now are using chatbots every day, which is great. I think in recruitment and in HR, I think we can see a lot of practical uses for them. So that's great. And if you're interested, I'll mention in a bit, we've got some ChatGPT webinars coming up for beginners. So for the people here that have not used it yet, we've got a webinar for beginners in a couple of weeks. Actually, it's next week. And we've also got a webinar for the more advanced users next week as well. Okay, great. Thank you for that, guys. That was useful to know. So let's think about what they can and can't do yet. So what can chatbots do? They can obviously answer the many different questions that applicants could have, assuming you've fed them the right information, you've trained them with enough information. They can signpost candidates to the right information. They could say, yeah, great, you want to probably read this article over here where we spoke about this or something. Absolutely. They can collect information. The ones I'm showing you today are more, I'd call them answer bots. So they're more doing the first 2 steps of just answering questions, but you can have them integrated with an ATS. And that's something that we're obviously investigating ourselves here, where they can ask questions and collect information from candidates. I think at that point that becomes even more interesting. And maybe they can update applicants, update candidates as well. So if they ask what's the latest on my application, maybe the chatbot goes away and finds that answer for them. Not too sure that's a huge need there, because I think in many cases the chatbot's going to check the ATS, and if the ATS hasn't been updated or they're just sat there as being sent to the line manager, there isn't really an update. And so I kind of figure, yeah, it could provide them the update that there's no update, but I'm not sure there's a lot of benefit to that. Once feedback has happened, normally people update the ATS, and the candidate gets an email pretty quickly after that to say yay or nay. So not too sure that last one is a huge benefit, but it might be the sort of thing that candidates would want, thinking that they'll get greater insights into what's going on internally in your recruitment process. Chances are you won't want to give them loads of information as to like, oh, it's been sat with a hiring manager now for 17 days. You're probably not going to want to tell them that. So how about when they can't help? What they can't do, they're going to struggle with complex emotional conversations. I should put an asterisk on all of these because they're absolutely going to struggle for a few months with this. Maybe in a year's time, I suspect they'll be very, very good at this. So when apps have been released now, the NHS has its own mental health app that it's using, because apparently most mental health crises, particularly with young people, happen in the early hours, like 2 a.m. in the morning and midnight and things like this. And they need maybe on demand someone to be able to talk to. And it's very difficult for, I suppose, the NHS to provide that level of human service at 2 a.m. in the morning. That's very challenging for them and probably very expensive. But actually, they're replacing that with chatbots that can sort of help. I haven't used them myself. I haven't seen too much of them myself. I've been reading articles about it. So they can absolutely help with that challenge. But the reason is that now, how are they going to be as good as a human counselor? No. Yeah. And I think a lot of these things with chatbots, with AI more broadly, it can get to 80 to 90% as good pretty quick. I was reading this about self-driving cars. They got really, really good quickly. But then there's that last piece. And even now, I don't know if you know, I only learned this the other day, that there's what they call teleoperators. So when the car gets in a certain scenario and it's stuck or it can't decide what to do, an actual human sat in a data center can take over it and drive the car and get it back into whether it feels more comfortable so the car can continue its journey. So, a lot of this stuff is 80 to 90% the AI can get us there. And the last piece, the humans are still much better. And that's definitely what we think with emotional conversations. But the reason I mentioned the mental health piece around counselling, think of all the data that's bringing through. Now, I don't know the specifics on this app that the NHS use and maybe the multiple different apps and whether they're able to use the information that people are given and like anonymize it and use that data. And the app said something, you see how people react to it to see if it can improve itself. But I do know that there will be lots of potential, lots of conversations going on where the app will be improving itself in this area. So like I say, it probably at 80%, it'll get to 90% pretty quickly. That last piece, it will get to 100% and it probably exceed humans in due course as well. But, getting to 100% is a challenge, undoubtedly. Now, other things we can't trust them to do. We can't trust them to find research and find their own answers. A lot of time, so you wouldn't set up a chatbot on your career site, and I'm going to show you one of those. You wouldn't set it up and say, look, there's our career site. There's loads of information out there about working at hireful, like Glassdoor, etc., etc. Go away and train yourself. Yeah, that's probably too risky. And you want control over it. So you're going to feed it the information that you want. And they're not particularly good at, well, they're actually not bad. AI more broadly, which is obviously the AI's underlying all these chatbots, so are pretty good at creative problems. What they're not good at necessarily is the vision. So, if you said, well, if you said, for example, AI is amazing, here's our recruitment team, where should we use it? It's more likely to give you a list of ideas than like, look, I've analyzed your company, here's the clear direction, here's the obvious low-hanging fruit that you could benefit from first. So it's not brilliant at that big strategic decision. Once again, that's where us humans come in, hopefully. Okay. So let's start thinking about getting ready for your first chatbot project. I'm interested in just seeing, let me go back here on the poll, throw out another quick poll. This is the last poll. I want to find out where you guys are with your chatbot project. It could be you're just considering options. Maybe some of you are a little bit further along. And I'm also interested in sort of what particular areas interest you in regards to that chatbot project. That's also of interest to me. We will be mentioning again that as part of signing up for this webinar, we are giving away a free chatbot for 2 years to one lucky registrant. That'll be happening next week. So I'll mention that in a bit. So, okay, great. So I'm going to give it 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you for voting on that, guys. I'll share the results with you so we can see. So most people at that early stage, people start to plan. That's what I would have expected for this webinar. Yeah, if you're sort of in the building phase, you probably maybe don't need this webinar. And if you were live, you'd only be doing this webinar if you wanted to sort of reflect back and maybe get to phase 2 and improve it. And then most of you are thinking about it for recruitment, helping candidates. I will show you an example of both of these in due course as well. So hopefully the not sure yet people, hopefully that will help you guys. Okay, so planning. And we are going to go live with some stuff as well. So the PowerPoint stuff is almost over if you bear with me. So one thing to think about if you're not sure what type of project you're looking at is, where is it going to have the biggest impact? What's the simplest area to deploy a chatbot? As I said, they can interact with your ATS and things like this. That's probably more complicated than if I refer to these like answer bots. You train them up on a bunch of data and then they can help your candidates by answering questions that you haven't got the capacity to answer, or maybe helping your internal staff answering questions on HR matters because you fed them your policies, etc. You can see how that would work quite simply and be an easy win. I think with a lot of AI stuff, you're probably looking for that first project to be short, sharp, and deliver impact and low cost as well, I'd imagine. So that's what I would focus on. But also need to think about, what type personality tone would you give our chatbot? How does your organization's tone of voice work? How does it look? That's not too complicated. That can be a bit similar to ChatGPT, where you ask it to write, an email in a certain tone or a blog post in a certain tone. You don't have to get too far down the rabbit hole with that. Quite often, like one sentence to say, use this type of tone or is sufficient. What is more interesting is the design, though. So research and choose your chatbot platform. And then this is the key bit as well. This is the bit that will take a bit of, as I say, I guess we've got HR people and recruiters on this session. So many of you won't be techies, but if you're doing this internally, you're probably working with someone who's more technical than you. But obviously you need to be there to set out the vision and the plan and everything else. and then the techie perhaps delivers that. The conversation flow is really key, and you sort of need to like plan escalation. Let me show you this next screenshot will give you a bit of an idea, a bit of a vision, because this is all talking about the conversation flow without me going too far into the technical stuff. But you can at least think about some of those conversations yourself, that a candidate comes in, they're asking a series of questions. Let me take this, for example, I'll give you one example from recruitment and one example from HR world. So with a candidate, the obvious one would be they ask a question you don't have the answer to within your knowledge data set from what you fed the chatbot. So you would then have do I have the answer, yes or no? If it's no, then the chatbot provides a different response, probably saying, hey, look, I don't know the answer to that. Here are some of the things I have been trained on, I can answer for you. Did you want to reframe the question in another way, or did you want to ask a different question? So you can sort of see how that would be managed. Now, if we had it on the other side, a chatbot for internal employees that might have questions about HR questions, sort of first line questions that maybe hit in your HR department, and maybe you fed the chatbot your employee handbook and other policies. You might want to have as well, because we've built both of these examples, and I'm going to show you them live in just a few minutes. You then might want to have a scenario whereby you have different decision or different avenues you send the conversation down in some areas where it's concerning. So, for example, if within that you start looking at your employee handbook and reading through it, and you can sort of anticipate the questions, will you just go to ChatGPT and say, give me this is what I'm building. Suggest me 50 questions that my employees might ask. Suggest me another 50. And you just get loads of ideas coming to you. Sooner or later, you'll see some things that will be asked, or you'll realize that your employees might ask a question like, I'm being bullied. What is the policy, or what do I do? Or I've been sexually assaulted, or sexually harassed, or I've been racially abused, or so you probably want to have a conversation flow that goes off and says, look, if someone asks a question in this area, then let's not handle that via the chatbot. Let's respond to them with a statement such as, look, the business takes this very seriously. It's really important that you discuss this with us. You can discuss it confidentially. You can discuss it with your line manager, but you don't have to. You tell them whatever your policy is, but you don't try and encourage the conversation on the chat box. It's not relevant. Yeah. Another good one about tone of voice, because I saw someone at an AI workshop that I went to that was talking about they built this HR bot that we had built, and they said, "Oh, make sure you give it a nice, friendly, cheery tone of voice, because you want HR to be brighten up people's days and stuff." And I just raised my hand and said, "What about if they ask about bereavement policy?" So you should maybe get the chatbot to be a little bit more toned down, and you can also ask the chatbot to reflect, the mood of the individual. Yeah. So if someone pops up and says, "Hey, morning, I'd love to know more about this," then the chatbot can say, "Oh, that's great. Happy morning. Good morning to you too." Yeah, and they'd maybe reflect that a bit further. Whereas if someone says, "What is the bereavement policy?" then the chatbot maybe reflects that and says, "The bereavement policy is this." Yeah. So there's ways to do that. So some of the things you need to think about. So that conversational design, this is where you're sort of stress testing it and thinking about those, what a developer would call edge use cases. Those sort of the stuff that's on the edge that you don't really think about much. You test it and everyone seems fine with it, but then it's like, then someone just does this and says, "I'm being bullied." And you're thinking, well, we want to have a better response than just quoting the policy, perhaps. Yeah, we want to show we care. So let's make sure we go with a different response for that. Okay, let me know if you've got any questions around this, guys. I'm almost done with my PowerPoint piece. The data set, you've seen me refer several times to the information you're holding has been really key, that you've trained the chatbot on, that is really key. So the key question for many of you, if you look at these projects, and the two that I'm focused on today, the HR one, the recruitment one, have very different challenges when it comes to the data set, which I'll talk about in a second. So this is what we're talking about, is like, where is the information? Okay. Now, when we built our HR bot, which I'm going to show you in just a few minutes, it can answer questions for employees at hireful about what's in our employee handbook. So our employee handbook, 126 pages long. Okay. When I want to know something about HR, what our policy is here or there, I do not go start doing a control F to find like the bereavement policy within the document. Yeah, I just go to the chatbot and I ask the chatbot. Yeah, because it will quote it to me nice and easy without me having to flip through 126 pages to that'll go to the index and work out where that is. So all of that data, all of the, many of the answers that staff would have about HR stuff is already contained within either your employee handbook and probably a few other policies you would feed it, like your cyber security policy and any other additional policies that you have. Like you might have an employee AI usage policy around how people should use AI. If you don't have one of them, feel free to email me. We've got a template document we can send you that you can sort of start a conversation with. That's another project for another day. So yeah, the HR answer bot that needs to answer questions for your staff about HR questions, really easy because most of that information has been very well documented, and your employee handbook and stuff is probably kept very well up to date. Now, looking at the candidate bot, where someone can go to your career site and say, what's it like to work in this team or that team, and what tools do you use within this team? If I was going to join the marketing team, what sort of tools would you be using? Because I'm really interested in working with the latest tools and stuff. That's a quite niche question. It's probably buried in the manager's head. Well, the other members of the team know it as well. So what we do for that is we normally go out to managers. We would set a series of questions on a survey and share that out to managers. Now, the difference on that survey is it's like an online form. The managers can type their answers in, but we encourage them not to. We encourage them to push the audio button and just verbally answer the question as if a candidate asked it during an interview. Yeah, they don't have to be word for word. They can be very much blah blah blah. Oh, and this. Oh, and also this. Oh, well, and also this. Because it doesn't matter how they frame it. It just matters that you're feeding the information to the chatbot, because we've told the chatbot to answer succinctly, for example, and provide detail. So it will do that. It will provide the amount of detail we want. We've just got to get the information out of the manager's head into the chatbot. And we think the easiest way to do that is to set up a form where you ask your manager the questions, and then instead of asking them to type it out, and I'm sure some still will, you can say, look, explain what it's going. It's not going on the website. You're not taking that text and putting it on the website. It doesn't need to be pixel perfect. It is simply a matter of give us the information. So push the audio button and you'll be done in 10 minutes. We'll answer these 12 questions in probably maybe 20 minutes. Brilliant. And then we've got the information we need. And you can vet that. You look at each answer to each question, read it, to make sure they haven't gone off, said anything too absolutely wild, because you're still then, and you've got the control. Okay, so you've controlled every piece of information that's been added into that data set. Okay, and then testing. So when we've rolled these out, we tested ours internally. We gave them to staff, and people that weren't involved in the project. We just said, look, this is what the chatbot does. You're an employer hireful. Why don't you ask it some questions? Or imagine you're a job seeker looking to work here. Why don't you ask it some questions? And then that helped. That gave us some good feedback. Also gave us some feedback about expectations. People might be asking questions about areas we weren't really covering. So that was useful. And then you can decide on a full release or an initial pilot, maybe a smaller release to control things. And then, you need to think about how you're going to promote the chatbot, and then obviously explain that it's AI and how it can help candidates. You need to think about that. So, you might put it into emails, put a link to it and stuff like that. If you've got questions, feel free to, but the key thing is that, like we spoke at the start, explain to people that the chatbot is intelligent. We've had 10 managers all feed information into this chatbot about their departments. So it knows lots of information about this. So a great resource to go and ask questions. Yeah. And then post-release, this is really important, because one of the nice things about these tools, almost all the tools should do this. So whatever platform you end up on, it should be able to show you the knowledge gaps. So every time in that decision tree where it has to go down the, I don't know the answer to this question, it should record that and be able to report back to you on it. And then imagine during COVID, imagine how those questions would have changed. But you'd have had a really good insight in almost like real time. Maybe at the end of the month, you look at them, you're able to see these are the questions people are asking us. These are the questions we need to get answers to ASAP, and then add them back into the data set. Okay, you fill in the gaps, and you can obviously report on success metrics. You can monitor that performance and understand maybe people's satisfactions levels. You can have like thumbs up and thumbs down and things like that. After they've asked 2 or 3 questions, you can go, hey, how are you enjoying the experience? That sort of thing. You always got to manage that. You don't want to ask that after every single response from the chatbot. That would be very irritating. Right, so I did say we're going to leave the PowerPoint stuff alone. So let me just show you here. I'll show you the just drag this in and I'll show you the chatbot we've got. This is the HR bot. So I can ask it, so I can say, what is it going to let me type? Oh, sorry, start a conversation. Of course we do. Now, that obviously there's another thing at the start. You can have a different question at the start as to like, how do you want it to introduce itself? You can have it explain a bit more about who it is, and it's an AI bot and it's been trained in a lot of areas. Ask questions, away you go. So I can say, do you know much about holidays? So it's a HR bot. I could ask that question. It'll read the employer handbook. It's not instantaneous, but it's certainly not heavily delayed. And there we go. Tells me about that. You can additional days purchase. You manage it all via our Bereave HR system. I keep mentioning bereavement policy. Just I don't know why. That's a bit dark and bereavement policy. And actually, you don't have to give it a question. You can just say bereavement policy. It will sort of understand that and go, oh, I think you want to know about bereavement policy, don't you? So it will give me information about that. So away you go. So that's the basics. You can sort of see how it works. Really simple. Let me know if you've got any questions about that. The other one that we have built is, if I drag this in here, this one is live, because that one's an internal one. So this one is live on our career site. So this is our career site. Lots of information about hireful on here. Fantastic. And when the page loads, there we go. We will see, click here to chat. Now, we could have the chatbot pop up. There's a question for you. It's up to you if you want to do that. I don't mind the chatbot popping up. I think that's probably better. But what you should probably do then is, once people minimize it, have it remember to stay minimized. So we had a scenario where when people minimized it and they moved to a new page, up popped the chatbot again. So you have to think about that user experience a bit. Okay, so curious, and this has got more of a personality. Curious about what it's like to work at hireful. I've got the inside scoop, just ask. Now, the way it's built as well, if I come back to this website and do the same process, it doesn't always start with that question. It's got like 6 or 7 different starters, same sort of message, but just phrased differently every time. So I can say, what's it like to work at hireful? Is there a good culture? Yeah, there's lots of stuff going on, and it's giving me the link to the main. Yeah, we've got a culture page as well. Okay, so yeah, you can imagine you can ask lots of questions about it. I don't think it will know our Glassdoor rating. Let's say, what is the Glassdoor rating? I don't think we've actually told it our Glassdoor rating, because that would be a moment in time. And like I said, it doesn't search the internet, so I suspect when I ask this question, it will say, don't know. Yeah. Have to be very strong about not letting it use go to the internet and look for answers. That's a really key thing. It's giving us the link to the Glassdoor page. That's good. So it's got that in its data set. So it says, look, I don't know the latest one, but you can check it out here. So that is actually still very helpful. Now, if I said, can I wear a hoodie to the office? And when you're testing these things out, test it out with like random, bizarre questions, because it will. I'm going to give you an example. Yes, you can wear a hoodie to the office because it knows our dress code is this, and people lean on the casual side. And how's the chat going? So it's asking me to sort of feedback on it. I can say like, what color hoodie should I wear? Can I wear a cowboy outfit to the costume? Now it's slightly odd. We've thrown that in before, and it actually said most. I asked it. Yeah, we're not really sure on that question. You should have a better answer than that. So say, what color hoodie do most people wear? It won't know the answer to that. The answer is purple, obviously, because we've got company hoodies. I don't think it will know the answer. But previously, we've seen it say, oh, because our general tone is quite relaxed and the culture, it's gone, oh, people wear like all different sorts of colours. It's very relaxed at hireful and all these things. Yeah, it doesn't know that as an answer, so we had to up the controls to say no, 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 do not. And so it's got there's different temperature levels you can do with that, more technical stuff. And you can see sort of there it says, I don't know what people wear. Yeah, you are welcome to wear any color you prefer because the dress code is relaxed and leans towards casual. So that's a good example where it knows something, it knows what it knows, and it knows what it doesn't know as well, which is really important, and where it doesn't try and get creative. Okay, right, let's pop back to my slides and keep me organized here. So there's a couple of live examples. I've got a fun live example for you as well coming up. I mentioned the hireful chatbot competition, so I'm just going to say I've spoke to Debbie and our marketing team, so we're going to draw that next week with everyone who's registered for this webinar. So someone will be lucky and win a project, and we'll get you live, and we'll post about it. It'll be really good. Yeah. Okay. But also, I want to talk about going beyond the basic Q&A. I want to talk about voice agents and show you this, because all of this is fine at the moment. I use voice all the time. In fact, if you see you can't see my tray at the bottom here, but I've got Whisper, this voice-enabled tool. So I'm replying to emails with voice. But a really good tip, anyway, is when you're using ChatGPT. I'll be talking about this in next week's webinars. Where's my friend ChatGPT? Have I? Okay, well, here's Perplexity anyway. You can see the voice there, dictation. And so whether it's ChatGPT or Perplexity, whatever you're using, I always use voice commands. The reason for that, my prompts that I give it are much more detailed. They might be rambling. They might be, oh, and also do this. It doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be a perfectly structured prompt to the AI. The AI can work it out. You can give it, if I give it more information, if I say, I need to write an email, it needs to be blah, 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 then that is more useful than just going, I need to write an email and give it a couple of words after that. So I use voice all the time, but I think, I'll go back to my slides, I think voice is going to be huge. And I also am going to tell you one other thing. Where previous technology, every revolution that's come out with technology, whether it's mobile, social media, the internet, it's been somewhat limited to the people who are comfortable and have good digital skills, okay, and good technical skills. AI for the first time will have far less of that challenge, and the reason for that is voice. Okay, let me just explain. My mum is 78 years old. She is on WhatsApp, and she's got a smartphone that we managed to get her, and she uses it. And she finds stuff on the internet. It's all fine. She sends me a picture and says, "Can you buy this?" So she has limits. Yeah, sure. But she's great. She's a 78-year-old Irish woman. She's really good at talking. So when AI just comes out of voice, and I could give her an app for a phone that would tell her the weather, so she knows before she steps out for the day whether it's going to rain. Whether she can remember where the app is and push the button and get to like the tomorrow's forecast or whatever rather than today's, or whatever she needs, it's more challenging. When you've simply got voice and you can go to, I know Alexa's not very clever, but if we use Alexa as an example, or your phone, and you can ask it questions and say, is it going to rain tomorrow in Bletchley where I live? And it will give you a good answer. I think that's really, really empowering, for a lot of people. So that's making it more accessible, but I also think it's probably where chatbots are going. And I love this next demo because the next demo is a tool called Sesame, which you can play with yourself as well. This is just a Sesame preview page. Let me know in the chat when the voice agent starts talking. I'm going to talk to Maya. You can talk to Maya or Miles. And I'll allow, while visiting the site, the microphone.
Hey there. Seriously, so glad to finally be chatting. No pressure to the Sesame team, right? What's on your mind today?
Well, I'm live in my webinar at the moment talking about chatbots, and I wanted to talk about voice agents.
Sorry.
Oh.
Could you say it again? Or hey, if you're just starting out, maybe tell me what you're hoping to get out of this little demo.
Yeah, can you hear me, or am I not coming through? That's annoying. Can you hear me? No, log in for, right, okay. So that's not a great experience. Let me just log in with Google and see if that helps. I think there's probably an issue with my microphone. Let me just try that here. I'm going to flip microphones to see if this works, guys. So, because I really want to talk to her and show you the back and forth, because I'm sure you could hear, I'm assuming you guys could hear her. Let me know in the chat. Someone could do that. Let me know if you could hear Maya. Assuming you guys can still hear me. You can hear me. Okay, let's go. Oh, thumbs up for Mike. Let me just talk now. I've changed mics. I think it might work now. I'm hopeful.
Hey there. What brings you to Sesame today?
I'm live in a webinar talking about chatbots, and I wanted to get your thoughts on voice agents and whether voice might be more widely used and people typing into chatbots in the future.
Oh, that's a good one. Honestly, I think voice is gonna win out eventually. It's just easier, you know? Like we're wired for it. Typing feels so transactional. Though I get why people still type. Sometimes you want a record or you're like in a meeting, but for just chatting, give me a voice any day. What do you tell people during the webinar?
I tell them lots of stuff, probably too many things. The main criticism I get from my webinar is sometimes there's too much jammed into it, and maybe I talk too fast as well, Maya. Do you think I talk too fast?
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, a little bit, not like overwhelmingly so, but you do have a lot of energy, which is good. But sometimes I have to like actively listen to keep up. It's a common thing, honestly.
Yeah, excellent.
People get
one last question before I go, Maya. I've got to go. How many sort of accents can you speak in at the moment? And is it possible in the future that if I was from a certain part of the UK that you'd just be able to mirror my accent?
That's a really cool question. Right now, I'm pretty solid with a few American, a touch of Australian, and I'm still working on a convincing Irish lilt. It's trickier than it sounds.
Can you please give me the example of the Irish lilt? I have to hear that before I go. I'm sure everyone else will be desperate to hear that too.
Go on now and listen to this then. Right. So imagine I was telling you about the price of tea. It'd be something like top of the morning to you. Sure. And it's a grand cup of tea, it is. But it'll cost you a few bob, so it will. It's definitely a work in progress.
I would
Don't
agree.
judge too.
Maya, I've got to go, but thank you very much for your help today. Bye.
No problem at all. Glad I could help. Come back and chat again soon. Maybe we can brainstorm some ways to slow down that webinar pace or even dive into the history of accents. Either way, I'll be here. Take care.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.
There we go. It always blows my mind. So feel free to, use that with your kids and parents and whatever and blow their mind. It's completely free. You can just go on there and just have a chat. And that technology is available then for software providers like hireful, like others, to build into their product. And one of the key things I've been working on is the latency. So how long it takes from me asking a question to them responding. So that's called Sesame, Amy. It is in the appendix. I'll find the link and put it onto the chat. Let me just find it actually now, put it onto the chat. We've got time. Sesame voice. Let me just, here we are. Yeah, you'll need to go to the preview. I've got it right. I'll find it and send it through to you. I'm not sure on the, might be a few sesames out there. Oh no, here we go. I've got it. So yeah, there's the link to it, Sesame, and you just go to the preview piece and you'll be able to play with it to your heart's content if you want to speak to more people. I'm sure there's parts of it that are a little bit annoying, but like they always say, oh, that's a great question when you first start off. So if it was my own personal like bot that was, I'd ask it to be just more succinct, don't flatter me, just give it to me straight, whatever. Yeah. Okay. Now, the last thing to finish off is we've built AI shortlisting into our ETS. I'm going to touch on and show you this because I think it becomes a very different change. There's a lot more you can do with chatbots once you've worked out who the strong applicants are. So let me just quickly show you how our AI shortlisting works. Recruiter comes in when they put the job on and they set up to 3 questions that they want the AI to look at and ask. So based on the anonymized CV of the applicant, okay? So it just says, have the person got experience in this? Have they got qualified in this? Have they got, this or that? And it works it through and basically really looks at those questions and answers them. It scores and rates every applicant. So my vision is that you can imagine, maybe you said if for anyone that scores above 70, then do this. We'll talk about what that is in a second. And then you get a detailed summary against, so you can see what the AI has done, how it's reached each of its decisions. You asked me to look for this. I gave them a 10 out of 10 because I found this evidence on their CV. So you can sort of see how it works. So we've got this live now, and if you're a hireful customer, then this is live for you. You can just reach out to us. We're telling every customer about it. We've just launched it in the last week or so. But the thing for me is then, if we know, I'll go back to that screenshot here. If we know who the strong applicants are, then this is the next version of it. You can apply for a job, and within 5 minutes, you can be screened by the AI. The AI would know you're a good fit and could come back to you and would maybe, this is the next phase we want to get to, which will probably be towards the end of the year, to be honest. There's a lot of work to do with it. Probably coming back to you by tool like WhatsApp and saying, hi, Adrian, I can see you're a good fit for this role based on your experience at, and it's able to look at your CV, as you saw in the instructions here. It can see why they're a good fit. You can look at their CV and go, you've got XYZ experience. I can see you've gained it over here, and you've got the qualification we're looking for. I'm the digital AI assistant over here at this company, and I would like to ask you a few questions about your situation, and then if that all works out, I can get you in front of one of our human recruiters. I can also answer any questions you've got about working at this organization, like we've been speaking about today. That same chatbot, hopefully been trained in what your organization is all about, so it can answer additional questions. But there might be specific things you want to know, like the role requires someone to be open to lots of travel. Well, yes, it's written in the job advert, but that's probably the first thing you mention when you get on the phone to a candidate. Or it might be that it's a part-time role and there's a certain shift pattern you want to clarify. So all of those questions, we normally think maybe there's between 3 to 6 questions, could be more, that a recruiter has, a sort of red flag type questions. Have you seen this? Do you understand this? I just wanted to check you're okay with this. And then what happens is you come in the morning and you've got a well-qualified, relevant candidate who's interested in the role. That's all been confirmed because they gave the chatbot 3 or 4 minutes of their time to answer questions. So that's where we're moving to, as I see it. And I think, it's not like we're unique in this. That's where I see recruitment moving to. I don't see this. I was on a stand at Excel and I had someone come up to me and talk to me about a full AI interview that happened, the first line interview, the full interview going on via chatbots and avatars. Wasn't totally convinced with that at the moment. Perhaps for some technical roles, you might want them to undergo a technical interview, but I still feel like if they're good candidates, you've vetted them and they're qualified, then get them to speak to a human. Then if there's a technical interview that's dealt with by an AI avatar that's going to check their coding ability or something, rather than dragging one of your developers off or something onto an interview, maybe that makes sense, but we'll leave that for another day. What I'm focused on here is, in the near future, in the next 6 to 12 months, I think a lot of ATSs will be able to rate applicants, and then if they meet a certain threshold, go out and talk to those applicants who've applied, confirm certain things. Imagine if they've applied but they live 200 miles away. The AI could check through and go, are you serious about relocating, and find out the answer to those questions. And then it gives you back or highlights to you the really highly qualified, relevant, engaged applicants. And you're able to move, this is the key thing, so much faster because of that. And recruitment as a whole. So if you don't do it, other organizations will be moving so much faster with their applicants. Okay. Now, the ones who are not highly rated, they're still going to need that human involvement. The AI doesn't reject any applicants. That's still for the human to do. So you'd have to go through that. It's just highlighting to you the people that are clearly the most relevant. But even some of those may not have engaged with the chatbot. You may need to pick up the phone. They may not have qualified themselves. And maybe they've changed their mind on the role. And perhaps the chatbot can confirm that as well, because they may ask a bunch of questions about the role and go, oh, sorry, what's the shift pattern? No, don't fancy that. But so where I see this, the top of the funnel where there's lots of applicants, I see AI shortlisting working with chatbots in the future to really sort of do the heavy work, the heavy admin work for you guys, so you can then focus in on the talent. So that's the vision for the future. Let me know if you've got any other remaining questions. We are coming up to 11 o'clock. And I want to mention the upcoming webinars that we've got as well. So next Tuesday, we've got Beginner's Guide to ChatGPT. That could be useful for you and some of your colleagues, perhaps. We've got the more advanced one, we call it the ChatGPT Dojo, Train Like a Recruitment Ninja. That's next Thursday. And then we've got some other conversations going on around neurodiversity and how to write advert copy, and then how to write advert copy with ChatGPT as well. So lots and lots more stuff going on. So feel free to sign up to those. They're on our website at the moment. And yeah, that's pretty much the session, guys. If you're leaving the session, we'd love to have your feedback. We'd love to get a rating for the webinar. We'd love to hear what you thought. You can write a couple of comments as well if you want to provide a bit of feedback. That's also really would appreciate that if you have the time. And then the last bit I'll say, if you do add a nice comment on there, you've had a good webinar experience, we have these a wall of love essentially. So if you add your name to whatever you write, so like, you know, whether you like the webinar, add your name after it, then we'll add you to our wall of love here from feedback of people who've attended and liked our webinars. So that's where we're at. That's the only thing I'm asking for today. If you have the time, you had a good webinar experience. Other than that, hopefully we will see you on some future events. And my contact details are here. We will send you the slides. Good luck playing with Sesame. And any other questions about AI, anything in this space, feel free to reach out. I love talking about this subject. And yeah, good luck with the rest of your chatbots. Cheers, guys.